Welcome to the Where Are We Going Now podcast, where you meet interesting and crazy people, hear their stories on how they navigated through their own life, to hopefully give you some insight on how you'd like to navigate your life. Welcome to the Where Are We Going Now podcast, episode 14. I'm your host, Anthony Amarello. Today I'm here with Emily Duong, who is the CEO of Elite Skatewear and also a writer of her own blog called Emily Elizabeth Life. I met Emily today, actually. She was a referral from one of our previous guests, Alicia Baldino, and I'm really glad that Alicia referred her because she is actually going to make all of us feel so unaccomplished. It's not even funny. But without further ado, Emily, say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here.
We're very thankful that you made the drive all the way from Orange County.
Yes.
For people that don't know, Orange County is a bitch to get in and out of. So it's very cool that Emily came up here today on a Friday because I'm sure there's going to be a ton of traffic going back. So you're from Denver, not Colorado, but Denver, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Which is a really small town. And in your bio, you said it's the Amish capital of the United States.
It is.
So that's unbelievable. What was that like growing up?
It was really weird. The county I grew up in, which was called Lancaster, some people know of it if they know a little bit about Pennsylvania, but it was just a really small rural town. I went to like Taylor Swift's rival high school type thing. It was just, I had a cornfield in my backyard, like literally
Wow.
like it was like this whole, I had a little playground in my backyard and trees and like a cornfield. Literally like outside my bedroom window is a cornfield. I would pass by horse and buggies, on the way before I get on the highway type thing, and
Wow.
It was insane. So I always just grew up in a very small area, small community, and just not much really went on.
What did your parents do? Were they farmers? Were they cornfield farmers?
No, yeah. My dad, he works for Johnson & Johnson, and my mom just kind of works at home as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then are you an only child? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one older brother. He's 28 now, so there's quite a age gap there. But yeah, he's just older than me.
And what does he do? Does he do stuff like you, or is he completely different?
Yeah, a little bit similar and different. He's more into the tech type of community, kind of just like doing startup companies and tech and kind of the apps kind of thing. So
both entrepreneurs for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I'm like infatuated with Amish people. Did you interact with them a lot, or did they stay away from non-Amish people? I'm not sure the correct terminology.
I didn't really communicate with them that much. It's kind of really hard to really run into them really unless occasionally at like the local markets type thing, and just maybe like local restaurants that like they might kind of show up to. Again, it was just like a really small town, so like different types of people would show up places and they would kind of be regulars at certain places too. So if you don't go there on a regular basis, you probably wouldn't see them. So yeah.
Okay. Now, at age 7, you started figure skating.
Yes.
So how'd you get into that? Was that something your parents wanted you to do? Did you want to do it? How'd you get started?
Yeah. At the age of 7, I think that was when I went to a birthday party and classic me, I just got on the ice and wouldn't want to get off. I had a lot of blisters the first time I started skating, but I think ever since then, I just really fell in love with the idea of being able to do whatever I want. I think the concept of that is already applying to my life in general, but just being on the ice and being able to do whatever I want was really cool, and, I continued it on, and I did actually have a 2-year break when I was around like 10 and 11, but then I came back to the sport right after.
So did Tiger Woods. So
yeah. Yeah, so I came back around after 2010 Olympics, and then I started competing again, so yeah.
That's unbelievable. So the first time you got on skates was at a birthday party, you said?
Yeah.
And were you like natural? Did you need people to teach you how to do it? What was that kind of like? And then I know you said you liked being free, but did you figure that out in that one birthday party?
I think I'm looking back now and I think about it. I just think that it was really cool to me. It was really unique, and I noticed that not many other people did it. And I think I did get used to it pretty well. Ironically, I don't think I do that well on roller skates. But
Not going down to Venice Beach anytime soon.
It's weird. But ice skating kind of came naturally to me. But then as I progressed and, had to train, it did get a little tougher. But
for sure.
I think starting out, it was just like I wanted to do it and I was going to put my mind to it type thing.
So let's, I'm glad you brought up your training because you gave me your regimen here.
Yeah.
And that is unbelievable for an 8-9-year-old, even for, that's unbelievable for an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So take us through of what that kind of regimen was like.
Yeah. So around, I would say like middle school or like beginning of high school was when I started getting more serious with skating. I think that's like a typical age too, between like 13, 15 is kind of when you start getting serious. So in that time, I didn't have that many world-class coaches in my area. So my training center was actually in University of Delaware, which was about an hour and a half drive each time.
Literally leaving the state.
Yeah. So, because of that, I trained there on the weekends, occasionally like on the afternoons, like right after school, but I would leave school early. But on the days that I wasn't going down to Delaware, I'd be skating in the morning at 5 a.m. until around 7:30, and I'd go to class. I'd show up a little bit late because they had some leeway for me. And so I'd show up around 8 o'clock, and then, after school, I'd, go back to the rink for about another hour and a half, and then do off-ice training after that as well.
And now, so you said you took that break at 10 through 12, right?
Yeah, 10 through 12, yeah.
Is that because you thought it was too much and you just needed a break, or was it something different, or what was that about?
Yeah, I think it was a little too much for me at first, and more importantly, I think I fell for the I want to be like everyone else type thing. I felt that I was a little too unique, and I saw my friends playing soccer and, other...
Oh, how boring.
I know. So I wanted to do what they did, and I wanted to go to the pool during the summer instead of be on the ice. And I look back and I kind of think I was silly, but at the same time, what can I do? I was a kid.
Kid's got to be a kid.
Yeah. But I chose to go back then.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's funny. You hung out with your friends for 2 years and you're like, no, I think I'm going to go back to ice skating.
Yeah.
That's super funny.
It was nice seeing the Olympics too. It kind of like put things into perspective again. There were some of these skaters that I had looked up to even before I quit, and just seeing them there was just like a weird and cool reminder that I fell in love with this and that I just wanted to return. And I actually did have to beg my mom like a lot to let me come back. Like she wasn't letting me.
That's a big commitment, not only for you, but for your whole family.
I know, yeah. It was a big deal. And so I was always the one that pushed for it. And I think that's where I got my self-discipline now as well, because I was the one that always pushed for what I wanted to do.
And it seems like it worked out.
Yeah.
And then it also says you were an outstanding tennis player. So how did those two kind of integrate? Did you find tennis in the 2 years off? Like, how did it happen?
Yeah, so I actually did. After I quit skating, I did put all my focus on tennis instead. My brother was a competitive tennis player as well. He played at Penn State. So, he had that tennis background. So I always watched him play. And then, when I took a break from skating, I needed another sport. And so I picked up tennis. I did a lot of clinics. I just practiced with my brother. And then I played a lot of tournaments. I did really well. And then we kind of realized that I was also somewhat of a star in the sport too. So everyone's like, oh, maybe she can do college tennis. And so I picked that up. But when I came back to skating, I didn't drop tennis just because I felt that it was really fun to balance both. Although I think everyone realized it was unrealistic to be like the best in both.
That's Bo Jackson that. You could have done it. I believed in you.
Yeah. And, it was interesting. So closer to the time I was starting to look into colleges, I kind of had to figure out if I wanted to do the college tennis route or just kind of go on my own, figure it out type thing. And, as I am here now, I chose to kind of do what I want with it. But I really enjoyed my competitive tennis career. Definitely taught me a lot.
And so, first of all, who's better, you or your brother?
My brother, I think.
She said hesitantly.
I think just because his focus was always on tennis and mine wasn't. Had I had more focus in tennis, I could have been, at the same level of, rigor and, type thing. But I think, his focus was always there. He was district champ, state champ, and he did well in high school and college. So, it was just kind of within the family type thing.
Are your parents gymnasts? Like, how did they come up with two unbelievable athletes? Because it also says you were ranked number 1 for Central Pennsylvania divisions 12, 14, 16, and 18 under. Mm-hmm. And then you also represented Pennsylvania. Now, this is figure skating, though, right?
Yeah, but at that competition, it's one of those state games where they have every sport. I don't know if you're kind of familiar with that, but that was actually hosted in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and so my attempt was actually to play in both sports. And unfortunately, I couldn't. Ended up not being able to play in the tennis draw because the first day conflicted with my same day competition, which I didn't think would happen with skating. But it did, so unfortunately I had to pick skating over, but I would have wanted to do both. I would have been able to get off the ice after and take off my dress and stuff and go and play a match. Like I would have loved that. Like that would have been my ideal situation, but it was still an amazing experience.
Yeah, without a doubt, I would imagine so. And then it says the Keystone State champion? Mm-hmm. That's what we were just talking about?
Kind of. So Keystone State Games is like a part of like the State Games of America, which is like Keystone is just for Pennsylvania. So for other states, I don't know, like I think like the Sunshine State is Florida or something. So those kind of like state games, they all kind of come together. I think it's every 2 years, so you have to place, I think, top 2 within the last 2 years to compete at State Games of America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
And at the same time is when you started your own business, Elite Skatewear.
Yeah.
And you were 16.
I was 16.
I feel that I was reading your bio and I was like, I must be the dumbest person on earth. Like this girl starting a business at 16.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? What made you want to, start, not only competing, but if you can't tell from the title, Elite Skatewear, she makes dresses and skate. I don't know the terminology, but you can explain it. But like, how did you come to that realization at 16?
Mm-hmm. My mom, so skating, the sport stuff is very expensive. It takes just, a lot of time and energy to go through all that training and stuff. So I know in the beginning, she tried to design and, make my dresses. And then later on, she kind of formed a business out of it herself. And then when I was 16, in that little teenager stage and rebel stage, I was like, I think I can do this better. Literally, I said that straight up. And, so I decided to, I decided to kind of graphic design my own dresses and did it online, and it was kind of interesting. I had these colors in mind and the way I wanted the crystals to lay out, and I've always had just a skill with relating to the music as well. I think that's why I also choreographed part of my programs, which is really rare for a competitor.
Yeah.
But, I think I always related to just the concept of the story of how I wanted a skater to portray the story on ice in their program. And so I really made my dresses and designs more modern than what my mom had envisioned. And so I think that's why I kind of branched out. And later on, when I was 17, I had a full-on eBay store.
Later on at 17.
And then I think when my first year in college, I took a little break just because it was I was kind of managing school and all of this at the same time.
A lot.
But last year was when I finally opened up my website. And then
took a gander at that today. It's a good website.
Yeah, and then now I'm moving into just partnering with wholesale dealers, and I'm getting my goal by the end of this year is to get my dresses into at least 10 pro shops throughout the U.S.
And that's an aggressive goal.
Yeah.
So, okay, and then when did your let's step back to high school before I get into your blog and stuff. So you're 16, 17, and you're doing this, and you're competing, and you're also thinking about college.
Yeah.
So what was that mindset like? What were you really looking for? What were your kind of deciding factors? Because you ended up here in California, but so how did that kind of go about for you?
So at the time, I think ever since the age of 13, I always knew I wanted to move out to California at some point. Whether I would stay here or not, I knew I wanted to experience it. In fact, I wrote in my best friend's yearbook in 7th grade, I said, I'm going to miss you when I'm in California. And she still sends me Snapchats of that. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you wrote that. And so, yeah, ever since 13, I knew I wanted to be out here. And so I think I kind of played it out where I was going to see where I was with skating and tennis or whatever that was, and figure out where I was going to be at the age of 18. And I think senior year came around. I actually had a back injury that prevented me to be able to further skating and tennis. I couldn't, wow. Yeah, so that was unfortunate. But I think at that point, I was already looking forward to what college could be like. And so because of my back injury, it kind of happened all together at the same time. And so I moved forward with thinking about professional skating, which I do now on occasion, just like aside from school, I go into professional shows. But yeah, I think once college apps started going around, I started putting my focus into that. And I applied, I think out of the 11 schools I applied, 9 of them were in California. So I think my parents were, especially my mom, she was devastated that it was kind of a clear, idea that I was not trying to stay in, within the area. But I think that was just always my goal. And then since then, I knew that I wanted not just a college experience, but I wanted to be able to build a life and, a lifestyle I wanted from, by moving over to California.
Yeah, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. Your mom was like, I drove her to all those practices. No,
literally, she actually says that. She's like, is this how you show you appreciate me? Yeah.
Now, do you go home often, or do they come out to the sunshine and visit you more?
Yeah, I go home maybe like twice a year. Honestly, I think
that's solid.
My first year I think I only went home once, which was Christmas. But I think now I'm a little older, so I'm a little more understanding, and I go home when I can. And they do come over here when they can too, because they do want to move out here. But
the smart ones do.
Yeah. But, they said it's just a lot tougher than, it seems just to pack up everything from PA and move over to California. Sure. I think, their goal is also to be able to come out here as well.
And so what college did you end up going to?
Yeah, so my first 2 years, I attended UC Irvine in Irvine, California. And, it was a fun experience for me. Definitely, my college app experience and just kind of figuring out where I was going to go didn't even finalize until mid-July, honestly. Mm-hmm. I was actually still between Pepperdine, USC, and UC Irvine in July. And people
are you also a genius?
I wish I was a little better in school at the time. I think my focus was too out there that I didn't have enough focus in one specific thing. So I think I could have done better in school, but it was just 3 different tough choices, and each one had kind of strings attached. Like USC, I would have to go abroad for a year and then come back type thing. Pepperdine, I was waitlisted, then got off of it, and then that was when I knew, which is July. And then UCI was what I was set on before I knew my other options.
Yeah.
And then so I was just really excited to go out to California in general, and so I think that's why I just picked Orange County and Irvine, and I was like, oh, it's a beautiful area, which is so true. It's so clean. It's so nice there. But unfortunately, I think the academic environment and just kind of the people there, I did not find people with a similar mindset. Didn't really find as many people who were as goal-driven. I think more were still in the college mindset, which there's nothing wrong with that. I just think I knew how much I sacrificed to be in California that I did not have time to waste.
Yeah, right.
And my major was just kind of very, textbook stuff, and I did not feel like I was gaining much outside or from the classroom and bringing it outside the classroom. So from there, I decided to transfer, and now I'm at Chapman University.
Okay, so when you got to California and you went to UC Irvine, mm-hmm. was there any kind of culture shock coming from a small Amish community, cornfields in your backyard, to beautiful Orange County? Mm-hmm. What was that transition like? I know you said the people had different goals, but what was, the environment? How was that transition for you?
Yeah, the environment was, yes, you're right. There was actually quite a culture shock for me as well. Growing up on the East Coast, you grew up on the East Coast as well. Yeah, I don't, the environment is very different from California. I don't know how to really put it in the best way, but it is extremely different. Irvine and UC Irvine especially I'd say the best way to put it was just really diverse. campus, and I was not used to that growing up in just this small town in Pennsylvania. So it's just a lot of diversity, a lot of different minds and different way of thinking, and I feel like that kind of also created an environment where there was a lot of like, sometimes tension between the way people thought, and in that sense, I felt like there was not like a simple, straight direction that the school kind of brought everyone in. So I think that's why I felt a little lost there in a sense. I was like, I can't tell what this school wants for its students, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I've literally never heard a better reason for leaving a school.
Yeah.
like most people are like, the parties weren't that good, or I couldn't bring my car there my freshman year. You actually want to do things.
No, literally. And it's kind of funny, though, because I think still to this day, some people actually think that it was because of the party scene or because of it is kind of known to be rather like lacking of a party because it's Irvine, it's one of the safest cities type thing. And, cops would show up and roll the parties. But, that wasn't really like... It was like not much of a factor to me. It was not my place, and you kind of feel that when you're there and when you're on campus or when you're talking to people, and when you can't really find the right people the way I had found back on the East Coast. That was just kind of a sign it's time to like move forward. Yeah. Yeah.
So how'd you find Chapman?
I had a few, like I guess like acquaintances at Chapman. I always knew of it. Actually, now that I think of it, I actually came across Chapman randomly. Long story short, I had a puppy and I brought it to Chapman one day. It was like during their like Thanksgiving break or something, so no one was really on campus. And then I ended up running into the dean of admission because he saw my puppy. He's like the cutest thing ever.
What kind of dog is it?
He's a Maltese Cocker Spaniel mix.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he's
cute looking dog.
Yeah, he looks basically like a mini golden retriever. But basically the dean of admission like saw the dog, and he was like asked me what year I was, and I told him, I'm actually at UC Irvine. I'm considering transferring. And then ever since then, it was like November 2016, I was kind of like, I learned more about the school, learned about the communication school and the business school, and I knew I wanted to do somewhat of communications as well, since that was not offered at UC Irvine. And so I kind of got hooked into it. I was like, it's a pretty good idea. So I kind of went with it.
Isn't that crazy how that worked out?
It was really crazy. So I look back and I think, wow, it's kind of interesting how that happened. But, I think
you
it went well.
You could have took your dog for a walk at Santa Monica Community College. Like that's great. And so now you're at Chapman and you're studying communications and what else?
And business, yeah.
And business.
Yeah.
You're all about communicating in business.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
And now you have your own blog as well.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get started? It's called Emily Elizabeth Lifestyles or something like that.
Yeah. Basically just kind of, I never really had a straight goal with it when I started. I always knew I didn't want to go the fashion route. I didn't want to be a fashion blogger. I didn't want to be a travel blogger either, really. I wanted to change in a way that was somewhat more relatable. I always looked at these other bloggers and see they travel to Europe and all these, exotic places. I felt like that was very unattainable for people my age, and I always wanted to showcase something for others within my age group, and kind of cultivate more of a lifestyle and like the way I live and the way that it can be healthy for others too. Just being more mindful of, simple things like what you eat or what you do every day and how often you do these things and how often you're on your phone, all those things. I wanted to focus my blog on that and kind of my thoughts on it versus like, oh, this is what I was wearing and this is what I wore. So I always knew I wanted that, but it was actually about exactly a year ago was when I started the idea of the concept of it. It didn't have a site yet either, but I knew that I wanted to be able to create content that could be valuable to an audience of people my age, and rather than just always being the consumer of this content.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good idea because you're right. I do think there are a ton of bloggers out there that, they put out these things and you're looking at them and you're like, that is not attainable for anyone in their, 20s or even people in their 30s can't attain that.
Yeah.
And, I really like that idea. So let's dive into that a little bit more. What are some of the things that you do on a regular basis anyways that you would write about or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Right now, I've really focused on mindset lately. I think it's kind of just the simple things like how you train your mind on like what you're thinking every day and the simple things of like being able to think for yourself, I think that's one thing that I kind of hashtag a lot. It's kind of like hashtag think for yourself or like think about it, because I noticed that a lot of people in the millennial generation, I'm being surrounded by college students all the time. I see that they literally just scroll through their phones and they consume the content and they believe it, and they can't step outside of the box to be able to think for themselves or think of what they can do to be the creator of that content or share their thoughts on it, rather than sit back and listen to what other people are saying about it and kind of like let that diffuse in their head. And I am, a strong believer in just being able to be an individual rather than a group thinker. So I think that's something I write about a lot, and I kind of microblog through my captions as well. Sometimes I don't write like a full post on it, but lately my focus on my blog has been just about mindset, about kind of, if you want to attain something, put this through your head and let that sink through and think about it, and it's been cool to get some feedback from people too who actually say like, that's a really interesting, I never thought about that, that's so cool that you're thinking of it like that at this age. And I really respect and appreciate the people that do kind of acknowledge that not many people this age think like that, but I hope that this generation can soon think more like that, because I think there could be so many strong and well thought individuals at this age.
And I you said that, and it's really, you really hit it on the head when you said that they're consuming the content.
Mm-hmm.
And but then it just sits there and they don't ever go back to it.
Yeah.
And even if they do think about it for a second, they just, retweet or, share whatever they saw,
mm-hmm.
what somebody else wrote.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see many people that are, taking their own stance, or maybe they are taking their own stance, quote
mm-hmm.
unquote, but it's really just another stance of the herd.
Yeah.
I think getting the conversation started about thinking individually, because I think that is what a lot of this, our country, millennials anyways, lack.
Yeah.
Is there is no individuality. There's starter packs for everything
yeah.
these days,
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And then how much longer do you have left at Chapman?
So I have one more year, so I'm in my junior year, so next year is just my last year, and it's kind of weird saying that. I just remember being a freshman just like last year. But yeah, I guess technically one more year and then I'm out.
And do you have any plans for after?
After, it's kind of still, I guess I'm trying to play my options the best I can this year, and especially this summer. Right now, I am obviously working on my personal brand, working on expanding that, see what I can do with collaborating with other brands.
Yeah, you were just, you said that you just started collaborating, or was that in 2017 you had your first collaboration?
Yeah, last year was my first collaboration. I think it was with a lifestyle brand. It's called Have Some Fun Today. They're actually based in Pennsylvania, so it's kind of cool. So they have these awesome lifestyle like products, tanks, and just kind of the type you'd wear to maybe yoga, workout type things. So I think it's really cool, and I'm a huge advocate of staying healthy, staying fit, and so I do that kind of thing a lot: SoulCycle, yoga, running, and all that. And then I collaborate with just other like jewelry brands and other just brands that I really feel that work well with my lifestyle. And if it's something, even if it's like style related, I still might work with them just because that might pertain to what I would actually wear, and kind of like showcase more than just a college student. I'm more than just an athlete. I'm more than just like this entrepreneur. I'm also just a 21-year-old who loves like small things too. And I'm still just another girl. But I have just more self-discipline, and I love to share and help people to get that discipline as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And now, how do you find these places? Are you just scrolling through, or do you seek out certain things, or do they contact you? How does that all work?
Yeah. In the beginning, I never really knew how to reach out to brands and all that stuff. But the first time was the Have Some Fun Today brand. They reached out to me, and they kind of said, hey, let's collaborate. And I think it was like super cool to me. And then ever since then, I started to learn that I can also reach out to brands as well. So I started doing that maybe just a couple months ago. And, ever since then, I would just, here and there, I'd get like a yes and a no and, all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's been like a cool process. And I think it's definitely a new way for other brands and companies to work with influencers as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so now, before I cut you off earlier, I'm
No, it's
so
okay.
rude of me. Now, what were you saying going forward this summer and after school? What are you kind of thinking about? What's next on the
Yeah.
palette?
I do think that's important that I get some hands-on experience, maybe working for another company, working for, just another person that, has within the same industry. Right now, I am in the process of potentially working with another lady who has like a startup company, which I think is really cool because I'd be able to basically work on all the marketing, PR, and social media aspects, which is already what I'm very knowledgeable in. So I think that's just great for me to get the hands-on experience. So I do agree that that's important, not just to be like, oh, I'm going to go out of school and start off on my own right away.
Yeah.
I would love that, although I just want to be able to make sure I stay realistic and get a little bit of experience before I go, okay, I'm going to totally work for my own type thing.
Because like you have worked on your own your whole life.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you're scared about looking to work with other people or under other people anyways? Do you have any, are you afraid of anything or are you just ready to dive into it?
I don't think I'm really afraid that much. I think I want to be able to experience it. I think that's something I've always done is just really try to stay humble about where I am. I think people always thought I was crazy when I had my own business. I still worked for Abercrombie, for example, and my mom would be like, "What the heck are you doing? Like you're driving 20 minutes to the mall and you're getting paid $7 an hour. Like you're crazy." I was like, "Well, I think it's important to understand. When you're 16, 17, 18, like you need to know what it's like to work and do the dirty work and." To be able to appreciate it. And I really look back and, I think it's a great experience just to learn what it's like to do the normal job before you can really take on something yourself so you can appreciate it more.
How do you think you got this outlook? Because, like, I don't know, one 16-year-old that would have a job at Abercrombie while they already have their own business. I don't know one 16-year-old that has their own business. Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't know many 16-year-olds working at Abercrombie. We were all people more my size, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I was actually 18 now that I think of it. I don't know if there was like a rule about it, but somewhere in that age.
But where did you get this attitude of just submerging yourself and figuring it out and getting this real life experience?
I think I don't know. There's something about me that always felt that yes, I might look on paper super accomplished and everything, and I always appreciate and I'm always grateful for that, but at the same time I was always an advocate for staying humble, like truly humble about where I came from and what I've accomplished. And so I always think that it's important to be able to understand what a normal life of a other 21-year-old is like. They're working, maybe they're bartending or they're working retail and stuff. I think it's important to acknowledge that because not everyone has the opportunity to kind of, do something like I do. And I think, I have huge understanding for, other people's lifestyle. And that's why I truly like to help people to kind of like get into that mindset. Because I think once you get into the thought and mindset of knowing that where you are and, looking at a reality that you want to attain, I think it's, a huge step. And I think it's super important to be able to understand the basics of like what the normal life is and then understanding how to make it more realistic to what you want it to be.
Yeah, that is just so unbelievable to me. And like, I think your drive is uncomparable.
Thank you.
But also to like, I just don't know, like as an 18-year-old, if I was doing successfully, and you are very, very humble, by the way.
Thank
you.
you.
Don't have to worry about that. If I was successful at 18 years old, I don't think I would give one thought to how other people live their life. And I would just think, this is kind of the way. That's really interesting. Do you have any inspirations, any people that you like look to not model yourself after, but inspire you to keep doing what you want to be doing?
Yeah, there's definitely 3 people in mind. I always listen to their podcasts as well. One would be Tony Robbins. He's the number one for me. I think that I've always been after listening to him and kind of also Gary Vaynerchuk as well, he's another big one. I really like the kind of the masculine way of thinking. I know that might sound weird, but I noticed that more of them kind of just speak very logically and have logical thought process. I also like Ray Dalio. He doesn't have a podcast himself, but he was a guest on Tony Robbins, and I'm a huge fan of his book. It's Principles by Ray Dalio, and it just focuses on life principles and the logic and way how all of them deal with people and the way they deal with what life throws at them. So I really look to them more for building a foundation of my principles as I continue, to grow and progress. And one other person I really like is Lauren Everett from The Skinny Confidential. She also has a similar mindset to them, I think, and I think she's a really great female version of kind of Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk in a way for her in her own style. So I think that's really unique, and they all three of them just have really strong mindsets, and I think that they don't let fear stop them. They don't let other people get in their way, and I think they just really have that tunnel vision, and I think that's so important and can be really helpful, and that's what a lot of successful people have.
Yeah. That's those are some great names you just threw out there. Mm-hmm. I listen to Tony Robbins every now and again, his podcast, anyways, but how did you find those? Like, when did that happen for you? Was that, recent? Was it, way back when they started?
Honestly, it was actually in November, which was a total epiphany turning point for me. And this is kind of why I'm even better where I am now. But I heard about Tony Robbins and like Tim Ferriss too through Lauren Everett, which was when I first came across her name on another podcast. And then I listened to her on my flight back from Pennsylvania to, Orange County. And this was, I think, after Thanksgiving break. And I was listening to her, and I was in a really bad time at this time. And for the past, actually, I don't know, 7 months from like December through like last summer. It was like a really rough time of my life. And so,
really?
So it's been a total build up to where I am now. But listening to her talk about, staying in your own lane and, comparing the idea of how Michael Phelps competes in the Olympics and how he doesn't look at other people next to him. And that really connected with me too as an athlete. Mm-hmm. I knew that it always got to me when I compared scores for other skaters. And I know that looking back now, I wish I didn't, but at the same time, I was younger then, I'm older now, and I have the ability to control where I look and who I compare myself to and who I think. So I think, Thanksgiving was in November 2017 was 110% a turning point for me to where I am now.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
That's so weird that you brought that up, because I was just going to ask you how you dealt, everybody has lows. Mm-hmm. Everybody has lows.
Yeah.
And, like you said, on paper, it looks like you've never had a low in your whole entire life. It looks like you haven't had time to take a breath your whole entire life. But so that's interesting. Are there any other coping mechanisms you use when you're not feeling as driven to get over these lulls or low whatever? Or is it just kind of stay your own lane, and trust the process of what you want to be doing? How does that kind of work for you?
I would say that I really try to stay focused only on myself. I think a strong habit that many people fall into is just kind of looking for a short-term way to fix the issue or fix the whatever it's, making them feel pain. And I looked to figure out a long-term solution. And that's why it took a while. But I think, you do have to go through a lot of pain to be able to kind of fix it yourself. And I think it's something also you have to be willing to do yourself, because if you have a helping hand, I don't think you'd be able to do it in the long run, because when it happens again, no one's going to be there to help you. And so I definitely say, I think because I took this route to do it in a long-term solution, doing it myself, sitting in bed, on a Friday night by myself, reading a book, I was okay with that, and I think the problem is most or, majority aren't okay with that. They're kind of, have that FOMO mindset, oh, I'm missing out on something. I should be partying right now, or I should be drinking, or should be doing something fun. And I let that, get past me, every single week. I was like, it's okay. I'm getting better. I know where I want to be. It's just going to take a while to get there. And then, when I came across the podcast, it was definitely a hitting point, because I knew it was like, oh, this is for sure what I need to keep listening to. Because at that point, I was reading a mindset book, and then, I turned to these podcasts, and ever since then, I listened to them, and I created just a more daily schedule for me to really stick to. And I think, I believe in daily, good daily habits create successful, people.
Yeah, that's very, very well said. Are your parents are they very goal driven, keep moving forward, stay your own lane kind of people, or are they more relaxed, keep to them, not keep to themselves, but you know what I mean, comfortable in where they are?
I think it's kind of hard to say. I think my dad maybe is more like goal-driven-ish. But I think both of them kind of grew up in a culture where it was more relaxed. So I think for the most part, they're just kind of more
Did they
laid
also
back.
Live in Pennsylvania growing up, or where are they
They
from?
grew up in Pennsylvania, but they came over to the U.S. when they were like 16 from Vietnam. So I think they always grew up in this relaxed culture, and it was a little different way of thinking over there. It's more simple, in my opinion. But I think because I was always I grew up in such a soft way of thinking, I knew I wanted to think for myself. I knew I wanted to learn. I wanted to see results. I wanted evidence. I wanted, something to really be structured under, because I didn't feel like I was under some sort of, foundation of principles when growing up, really. I knew that I wanted that, but I couldn't find it where it was. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping up here. First of all, what's your favorite part of California since you moved here?
Like city-wise, or just like anything?
So like you said, you always wanted to move to California as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
What were some things that you expected to be here when you got here, and maybe they weren't, or maybe they were even better than they thought? Like what has been your best part about living in California for you?
The best part has definitely been just the options to do whatever it is. I think there's always something you want. Food, you can get something within 2-minute drive. Back home, it was a 20-minute drive to Chipotle, literally, and it'd be going on the highway to Chipotle was just kind of a mission. But there's so many food options. There's so many fitness gyms and SoulCycle. There's just so many of that you can just choose, and you really get to choose and build your life. And there's so many options out here. So I think that's a huge opportunity for people who live out here. There's just so much that's offered that it's really at your hands, and you just have to go and, pursue it. So I really like that there's just everything here,
Yeah,
I love
definitely. And then we didn't really touch on this, but you do some coaching still, right?
I do.
So where do you coach? How'd you get into that?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I knew I wanted to be able to continue to work like a normal person.
Yeah.
So I decided to pick up coaching as just a side job. I knew it wouldn't take up too many hours. I was working only on the weekends. So I coach in Lake Forest, which is all the way down, I guess, near inland from Laguna Beach, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a really fun experience. I've been coaching there for over 2 years now. And I get to coach with other, older coaches, younger skaters. And, I coach skaters of all levels, all ages. And so it has definitely built my tolerance for kids too, and just for different people, but it's definitely built my communication skills. I learned how to, understand their way of thinking and how they process information when I'm telling them how to do a specific jump or a specific spin. Not everyone takes it in the same way, and so I've learned how to re-message the way I'm teaching them, explaining it to them. It's been really cool in understanding just the foundation of people and working with people. So I think it's been beneficial that I started early.
Yeah. That's you're amazing, man. You
Thank
really
you.
are. So let's they can find your website. It's eliteskatewear.com.
Yeah, so my custom figure skating dress website is eliteskatewear.com, and my blog site is just emilyelizabeth.blog.
And your Instagram, social media?
Yes, my Instagram is just at Emily E. Duong, and my last name is Duong. And that's pretty much the only social media I really use for publicly. Yeah.
Sounds like you cut all the bullshit out, and you're like, I'm going to stick with this, and that's it. That's
much.
great. And I'll tag all those in the promo for you guys listening. And then I do this with every guest. So if you had advice to give people that, were in a similar situation to you as a kid that are either, very sports oriented or, they know they want to move to California or whatever it is, what would you kind of give advice? What would your advice be to those people that are, wanting to kind of follow your path?
Mm-hmm. My advice would be to really lay out the vision of where you want to be. And it can be a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. I mean, I think all three are great options. And realistically write out how you can attain those goals. I think we always say we want to do something, but we never make it realistic enough. So I think my biggest advice is just stay focused on it and know that if you choose something else, that shows that it's more important to you. And whatever is most important to you will always stay true to your actions.
That's really good advice.
Thank you.
I think that's really good advice. Well, Emily, thanks for coming in. You got anything else to say? You want to shout out mom and dad?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to say, shout out to, everyone on the East Coast. I miss everyone from home. I think that's just where everything has been built for me. Shout out to my best friend, Edie, Candy, Michelle. Those are pretty much the best people. And my best friend P Cookie. He's also great.
P Cookie.
Yeah.
How do you get a name like P Cookie?
His real name is Patrick, but we just call him P Cookie. Yeah. But shout out to everyone. Just thank you for just being supportive. Thank you for everything you say to me, and keep me sane. And just everything's always appreciated.
Well, thanks for coming in, man. We really appreciate it. Guys, be on the lookout. Definitely check out her Instagram page and her blog and her website and the rest of her life. And if you need some figure skating lessons, give her a DM,
Yes.
Thanks for coming in. This was a pleasure. And guys, we'll see you next time. Guys, today your musical guest is Graham Elliott with his song Late Nights Free. Graham is a Instagram sensation and has really been killing it. So give his song a listen and give him a follow and check him out. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Some people, they want someone of their own. Some people, they feel like they're better off alone. But I've heard those songs too many times. I wanna write some new lines. I'ma tell you about a girl that I used to know. This Juliet, she don't want no Romeo. And that's fine, but she's dressed to the nines. She's sipping red wine. She told me she don't want anything at all. But for some reason they always fall, as long as you know that even though you're wonderful, I won't be waking you up before I go. She said, I keep my late nights free for you. I never gotta wonder how I gotta be for you. Ain't nothing to it, just don't try to keep me for you. Sometimes you just need loving from me. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you wanna get reckless and throw it back. I ain't mad at that. Sometimes you might be craving something else. I ain't obsessed with keeping you to myself, 'cause I know and I know on the low I'ma keep you coming back to the start. 'Cause I set the bar. I told her I don't want anything at all. But for some reason they always fall, as long as you know that even though you're beautiful, don't bother waking me up before you go. But girl, I keep my late nights free for you. I never gotta wonder how I gotta be for you. Ain't nothing to it, just don't try to keep me for you. keep my late nights free for you. I never gotta wonder how I gotta be for you. Ain't nothing to it, just don't try to keep me for you. Oh, 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 oh. But girl, you know I keep my late nights free for you. I never gotta wonder how I gotta be for you. Ain't nothing complicated, just don't keep me for you. Oh, ain't nothing to it, just don't try to keep me for you.